God is a frequency. Introduction. Everything you've been taught about God has kept you looking in the wrong direction, up, out, and away from yourself. The divine isn't a distant ruler sitting in the clouds, tallying your sins or handing out blessings like rewards. God is not something to worship, beg, or chase. God is a frequency, a state of being you can align with, embody, and express. The moment you stop reaching and start resonating, the illusion of separation dissolves, and the power returns to where it always belonged, within you. Right now, as you listen to these words, you are surrounded by invisible frequencies. Radio waves carry music and voices. Wi-Fi signals transmit data. Electromagnetic fields pulsing with information. Your phone can instantly connect to any of these frequencies simply by tuning to the right channel. You don't have to beg the radio waves to work. You don't have to prove you're worthy of Wi-Fi. You simply match the frequency, and the connection happens automatically. What if God works the same way? What if the divine is not a person, but a frequency? Not a being, but a vibration? Not something outside you, but something you can tune into and embody? What if every prayer you've ever had answered, every miracle you've ever witnessed, every moment of profound peace or sudden insight was simply you accidentally tuning into the frequency of the divine? This is not a religious book. This is not about converting you to any particular faith or convincing you to believe in any specific doctrine. This is about recognizing that you are a living, breathing, walking frequency generator, constantly broadcasting signals into the field of infinite possibility. And when you learn to consciously tune your frequency to match the divine, when you align your thoughts, emotions, and energy with the highest vibrations of love, peace, and creative power, you don't just receive miracles, you become one. This truth has been known by mystics for ages. Your words are not just sounds, they are spiritual commands that shape the invisible architecture of your reality. When you speak from faith instead of fear, from abundance instead of lack, from love instead of separation, you begin to reprogram the energy field around you. Reality does not respond to begging, it responds to belief, not to desperation, but to certainty. The universe bends to the clarity of your vibration, not the volume of your pleas. Today, this same truth is being confirmed through modern science and energy research. When you change your thoughts and emotions, you don't just shift your mood. You literally alter your brain chemistry and the electromagnetic field you emit. And when you consistently embody the feeling of your desired future before it arrives, you generate the energetic signature that calls that future into the now. You become the signal that life responds to. Together, these two revolutionary teachers reveal the secret that mystics have known for millennia. You are not separate from the divine. You are not a powerless human hoping for divine intervention. You are divine consciousness, temporarily focused in human form, with the ability to tune into any frequency you choose and create any reality you desire. But here's what most people don't understand. You're already broadcasting a frequency every moment of every day. Your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions are constantly sending signals into the quantum field. The question is not whether you're affecting reality. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, whether you're tuning into frequencies of limitation or possibility, whether you're broadcasting from fear or from love. In the next hour, you're going to discover how to become a conscious frequency generator. You'll learn to recognize the signals you're currently sending, understand how those signals create your reality, and most importantly, discover how to tune in to the frequency of the divine and live from that elevated state consistently. This is not about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about understanding the fundamental nature of reality and learning to work with the laws that govern creation itself. When you match the frequency of God, you don't chase life. Life recognizes you. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities multiply. Healing happens. Abundance flows. Love expands. And what others call miracles becomes your natural way of being. Are you ready to discover what happens when you stop begging God and start being God's frequency in the world? Then let's begin this journey into the most profound truth you'll ever encounter about your divine nature and creative power. Chapter 1. The Word creates the field. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. These ancient words from the Gospel of John contain one of the most profound secrets of creation ever revealed. They tell us that words are not just sounds we make with our mouths or symbols we write on paper. Words are creative forces that literally shape reality at the quantum level. This truth has been known by those who understand the power of the unseen. Your words are spiritual commands. Every time you speak, your vibration is sent into the invisible realm, where it begins to shape events, attract people, and organize circumstances that mirror the frequency of what you declared. Speak words of lack, and lack answers. Speak abundance, and abundance is summoned. Speak fear, and fear takes form. But when you speak from love, you become a magnet for all things rooted in love, and life begins to reflect that harmony back to you. There is a deeper truth that many overlook. The power of words doesn't come from the words alone, but from the consciousness behind them. It's not enough to simply repeat affirmations or speak beautifully crafted phrases. What matters is the frequency you're speaking from. You must declare your truth not from a place of lack or desire, but from the state of already having it. Your words must carry the energy of fulfillment, not longing, creation, not craving. That's when the spoken word becomes a tool of transformation. This ancient wisdom is now being confirmed through cutting-edge neuroscience. When you speak words that align with elevated emotions, like gratitude, joy, love, and faith, you literally change your brain chemistry. Neurons fire in new patterns, hormones shift. Your electromagnetic field begins to reorganize itself. You become a different person at the cellular level, broadcasting a completely new signal into the quantum field, one that draws experiences in harmony with who you've become, not who you used to be. But here's where most people get confused. They think that speaking positive words while feeling negative emotions will somehow override their internal state. They try to affirm abundance while feeling poor, declare health while feeling sick, proclaim love while harboring resentment. But the field doesn't respond to your words alone. It responds to the total signal you're broadcasting, which includes your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and the energy behind your words. This is why you must speak from faith, not from fear. Faith is not hoping that something might happen. Faith is knowing that it's already done. Faith is speaking from the end result, from the place of completion, from the frequency of already having what you desire. When you speak from this place, your words carry the creative power of the divine because you're aligned with the same frequency that spoke the universe into existence. Think about how this works in your daily life. When you wake up in the morning and immediately start talking about how tired you are, how stressed you feel, how difficult your day is going to be, you're literally programming your nervous system and broadcasting instructions to the field about what kind of day to create for you. Your words become prophecies that fulfill themselves. But when you wake up and consciously choose to speak from a higher frequency, when you declare that you're energized and grateful and excited about the possibilities ahead, when you speak as if you're already living the life you desire, you send completely different instructions to both your nervous system and the quantum field. You literally command a different reality into existence. The key is understanding that your words are not just communication tools, they are creation tools. Every time you speak, you're either reinforcing your current reality or commanding a new one. Every conversation is an opportunity to either strengthen the patterns you want to change or install the patterns you want to experience. This is why it's so important to be deeply mindful of the words you speak. Casual complaints, negative predictions, and fear-based declarations are not harmless emotional outbursts. They are creative commands sent into the field of reality. When you say, "I can't afford that," you're not merely stating a temporary condition. You're issuing a directive that reinforces financial limitation. When you say, "I'm so tired," you're not just describing your state. You're programming your energy system to remain depleted. Every word carries weight, every phrase carries frequency, and your life is always reflecting the vibration of what you consistently declare. But the reverse is also true. When you say, "I am abundantly provided for," you're not lying about your current circumstances. You're speaking from the frequency of abundance and commanding it to manifest. When you say, "I am filled with divine energy," you're not pretending to feel different from how you do. You're aligning with the truth of your spiritual nature and calling that energy forth. Research shows that when you consistently speak and think from an elevated state, you begin to rewire your brain for that new reality. You create fresh neural pathways that support the very experiences you're declaring. Your nervous system becomes trained to expect and recognize opportunities that align with your words. Over time, you become a vibrational match for the reality you're consciously calling into being, not just in thought, but in biology, behavior, and presence. The practice is simple but profound. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I about to reinforce what I don't want or command what I do want? Choose your words as carefully as you would choose the ingredients for a recipe, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're mixing together the vibrational ingredients that will create your future experiences. Chapter 2. Emotion is the bridge to the divine. If words are the commands that shape reality, then emotions are the power source that energizes those commands. Emotion is literally energy in motion, the vibrational bridge between your thoughts and the quantum field, the force that transforms mental concepts into physical experiences. Without emotion, your words are just empty sounds. With emotion, they become creative forces that can move mountains and part seas. It's been long understood by those who work with spiritual law that emotion is the secret ingredient that activates true manifestation. You can speak the most flawless affirmations, visualize your desires in perfect detail, and follow every metaphysical technique. But if your emotions aren't aligned with your vision, nothing will take root. It's the feeling behind the words that gives them power, and the emotion behind the thought that makes it creative. What many overlook is that emotions are not just reactions, they are choices. You can choose to feel grateful, even when your bank account is low. You can choose to feel loved, even in solitude. You can choose to feel abundant, even when surrounded by limitation. And when you make these emotional choices consistently, you tune into the frequency of what you feel, and reality responds by shaping itself around that vibration. That's when the law begins to move, not through force but through alignment. This truth has now been revealed through extensive research into the heart-brain connection. When you generate elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, and love, your heart begins to produce a coherent electromagnetic field, one that influences every cell in your body and extends far beyond your physical form. This state of coherence doesn't just feel good. It transforms your biology, strengthens your immune system, and broadcasts a signal into the quantum field that draws in experiences aligned with the energy you're emitting. But here's what most people don't understand about emotions and manifestation. The emotions that create your reality are not the temporary feelings you experience in response to events. They are the background emotional patterns that run in your system most of the time, the feeling tones that you carry as your default state, the emotional atmosphere that surrounds you even when you're not paying attention to it. Suppose your baseline emotional state is anxiety, worry, and fear. In that case, that's the frequency you're broadcasting into the field most of the time, regardless of what you consciously desire or what positive thoughts you try to think. The field responds to your strongest, most consistent emotional signal, not to your temporary emotional experiences or your conscious intentions. This is why emotional healing is so crucial for anyone who wants to become a conscious creator. You can't just think your way into a new reality. You have to feel your way into it. You have to address the emotional patterns that are broadcasting signals you don't want, and consciously cultivate the emotional states that align with what you do want. Low vibrational emotions like fear, doubt, guilt, resentment, and despair create a state of disconnection from divine intelligence. When you're locked in these emotional patterns, you literally cannot access the higher frequencies where solutions exist, where opportunities appear, where miracles happen. You're tuned into the frequency of limitation, and that's all you can perceive and experience. But high vibrational emotions like gratitude, joy, love, peace, and excitement create a state of connection with divine intelligence. When you consistently generate these elevated emotions, you tune into the frequency where infinite possibilities exist, where creative solutions appear, where synchronicities multiply. You become a magnet for experiences that match these elevated states. The key is understanding that you don't have to wait for good things to happen before you can feel good. You can choose to feel good now, regardless of your circumstances, and that choice will create the conditions for good things to happen. You can generate gratitude before you have anything to be grateful for, and that gratitude will magnetize experiences that give you more to appreciate. You can embody love before anyone loves you, and that love will attract loving relationships into your life. This is the deeper meaning behind the practice of acting as if your desires are already fulfilled. It's not about pretending or denying your current reality. It's about emotionally aligning with the reality you wish to experience so that you become a vibrational match for it. When you feel how you would feel if your dreams were already real, you begin to generate the energetic conditions that make those dreams not just possible, but inevitable. Your inner state becomes the magnet that draws the outer result. This is the power of elevated emotion, the practice of generating feelings that rise above your current circumstances. When you do this consistently, you begin to evolve your nervous system to expect and recognize higher possibilities. Your brain becomes trained to look for evidence of the reality you're emotionally aligned with. You stop reacting to life, and instead you become a conscious participant in your own evolution, creating from the inside out. The practice is both simple and profound. Throughout your day, pause and ask yourself, what emotion am I broadcasting right now? Is this the frequency I want to be sending into the field? If you notice that you're stuck in lower vibrational emotions, don't judge yourself or try to force different feelings. Simply breathe into your heart center and consciously choose to generate an elevated emotion. Think of something you're genuinely grateful for and let that feeling expand throughout your body. Remember a moment when you felt deeply loved and allow that love to fill your energy field. Imagine how you would feel if your greatest dream came true, and embody that excitement right now. These are not just feel-good exercises. They are powerful practices that literally change your brain chemistry and electromagnetic field. As you consistently practice generating elevated emotions, you'll notice that your external reality begins to shift to match your internal state. Opportunities appear that you couldn't see before. People respond to you differently. Synchronicities increase. What seemed impossible becomes possible. This is not magic. This is the natural result of aligning your emotional frequency with the divine frequency of infinite possibility. Emotion is the bridge to the divine because it's the language that the quantum field understands most clearly. When you speak this language fluently, when you become a master of your emotional state, when you learn to generate elevated emotions regardless of circumstances, you become a conscious co-creator with the divine intelligence that governs all of existence. Chapter 3. You can't think one way and feel another. There's a fundamental law of consciousness that most people violate every day without realizing it, and this violation is the primary reason why their dreams remain dreams and their prayers seem to go unanswered. This law states that you cannot think one way and feel another and expect to create anything coherent in your reality. Your thoughts and emotions must be aligned, pointing in the same direction, broadcasting the same signal, or you'll create internal chaos that manifests as external confusion. This principle has been understood with remarkable clarity by those who grasp the deeper workings of spiritual law. A divided consciousness cannot produce a unified result. It's not that blessings are being withheld, it's that contradiction within the self creates static in the field. When part of you believes in abundance, but another part clings to lack, when part of you affirms health but another fears illness, when part of you declares love but still harbors resentment, you're sending mixed signals into the quantum field, and those signals cancel each other out. True spiritual power comes from singleness of purpose, the alignment of thought and feeling around a clear, unwavering intention. When your mind and heart move in harmony, when your thoughts and emotions broadcast the same signal, when your inner world is coherent and undivided, you become a magnetic force. In that state of unity, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around your clarity. This ancient wisdom is now being confirmed through modern neuroscience and heart-brain research. When your thoughts and emotions are in alignment, you enter a state known as coherence, where your heart rhythms become ordered and harmonious, your brain waves synchronize, and your entire nervous system begins to operate in optimal unity. In this coherent state, you literally become more intelligent, more creative, more intuitive, and more powerful, not by force, but by resonance. But when your thoughts and emotions are misaligned, when you're thinking one thing and feeling another, you create incoherence in your system. Your heart rhythm becomes chaotic, your brain waves become scattered, your nervous system becomes stressed, and your ability to create positive outcomes becomes severely compromised. You're literally working against yourself at the most fundamental level. Think about how this plays out in your daily life. You might consciously desire financial abundance, while unconsciously feeling unworthy of wealth. You might think positive thoughts about love while emotionally bracing yourself for rejection. You might affirm perfect health while feeling anxious about every symptom. These internal contradictions create energetic static that prevents clear manifestation. The quantum field responds to your total signal, not just the part you're conscious of. When you're broadcasting mixed messages, when your thoughts say yes but your emotions say no, when your words declare one thing but your feelings contradict another, the field receives confused instructions and creates confused results. You end up attracting experiences that match your internal conflict rather than your conscious desires. This is why so many people struggle with manifestation despite knowing all the right techniques. They've learned to think positively, speak affirmatively, and visualize clearly, but they haven't learned to align their emotions with their thoughts. They're trying to create from a divided consciousness, and division cannot create unity. True transformation occurs when you learn to think and feel as one unified being. When you hold the thoughts of your desired future, while simultaneously generating the emotions of that future, you create a coherent signal, one that the field responds to with clarity and precision. You become a clear intention, fused with elevated emotion, and this powerful combination becomes one of the most potent creative forces in the universe. But achieving this kind of alignment takes more than surface-level positivity. It requires a kind of inner house cleaning, the process of uncovering and releasing the unconscious beliefs and emotional patterns that conflict with your conscious desires. You must become aware of the hidden programs running in the background of your mind, the ones silently sabotaging your intentions, and begin the work of clearing them. Only then can your conscious thoughts and subconscious energy move in the same direction, creating true coherence and lasting transformation. For example, if you grew up in a family where money was scarce and associated with stress, you might have unconscious beliefs that money equals suffering or that good people don't have wealth. These beliefs create emotional patterns of guilt, fear, or anxiety around money that contradict any conscious desires for abundance. Until you identify and heal these unconscious patterns, your thoughts and emotions will remain misaligned. The practice of alignment begins with honest self-examination. You must become aware of what you're really thinking and feeling, not just what you think you should be thinking and feeling. Notice the thoughts that run through your mind when you're not consciously directing them. Pay attention to the emotions that arise when you think about your desires. Observe the internal dialogue that happens when you imagine your dreams coming true. If you notice resistance, fear, doubt, or any other emotions that contradict your conscious desires, don't judge them or try to force them away. Instead, acknowledge them with compassion and curiosity. Ask yourself where these feelings came from. What experiences taught you to feel this way? What beliefs are creating these emotional responses? As you bring awareness to these unconscious patterns, you can begin to consciously choose new thoughts and emotions that align with your desires. This is not about forcing yourself to feel differently or pretending that limiting beliefs don't exist. It's about gradually training your mind and heart to work together in harmony. One powerful technique for transformation is known as mental rehearsal, the practice of thinking and feeling from your desired future state. You imagine yourself already living the life you desire. while simultaneously generating the emotions you would feel if that reality were already true. You rehearse being abundant while feeling abundant, being loved while feeling loved, being healthy while feeling healthy. In doing so, you train your body and mind to align with the version of you that already exists in the field of infinite possibilities. This practice literally rewires your brain and reconditions your nervous system to expect and recognize the reality you're rehearsing. When your thoughts and emotions are consistently aligned around a clear vision, you create new neural pathways that support that vision. You train your subconscious to believe in and work toward the reality you're mentally and emotionally rehearsing. The key is consistency and patience. You've been thinking and feeling in certain patterns for years or decades. It takes time and repetition to create new patterns that are strong enough to override the old ones. But every time you practice aligning your thoughts and emotions, every time you choose to think and feel as one unified being, you strengthen your creative power and move closer to manifesting your desires. Remember that this alignment is not a destination, but a practice. You don't achieve perfect coherence once and then maintain it forever. You must consciously choose alignment moment by moment, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. But as you develop this skill, as you become more aware of your internal state and more skilled at creating coherence, you'll discover that you have far more power to shape your reality than you ever imagined. When your thoughts and emotions are aligned, when your mind and heart move as one, when every part of your being is broadcasting a single, coherent frequency, you become a force of nature. In that state of pure alignment, you become a clear and powerful channel for divine intelligence, and through you, miracles are no longer rare or accidental. They become natural, inevitable expressions of the energy you embody. Chapter 4. God responds to certainty, not begging. There's a profound difference between asking and commanding, between hoping and knowing, between begging and declaring. Most people approach the divine from a place of desperation, pleading for help, bargaining for blessings, trying to convince God to intervene in their circumstances. But this approach actually repels the very thing they're seeking because it's based on the frequency of lack, separation, and powerlessness. It has been discovered through deep spiritual insight that God responds not to neediness, but to certainty, not to desperation, but to unwavering faith. Divine power is not activated by pleading, but by believing. Faith is your spiritual currency, the vibrational frequency that grants access to infinite intelligence and possibility. When you approach the divine with confidence instead of fear, with knowing instead of hoping, with alignment instead of doubt, you step into resonance with the same creative force that spoke the universe into being. But this understanding of faith goes far beyond the traditional religious idea of blind belief. True faith is not a wish or a hope. It is a state of consciousness, a frequency of being that aligns you fully with divine order. It is not waiting to see if something will happen. It is knowing it already has. In this higher awareness, faith becomes not a request for the future, but a declaration of the now. This ancient wisdom is now being validated through the lens of quantum physics and neuroscience. The quantum field doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to certainty. When you approach it from a place of need, lack, or fear, you're energetically broadcasting the signal of not having, and the field reflects that by continuing to withhold. But when you approach it with gratitude, completion, and unwavering belief, you're sending out the frequency of already having received, and the field mirrors that state with corresponding experiences. This is why it's essential to live it before you see it, to embody the emotional state of your desired future before it appears in physical form. When you feel grateful before the gift arrives, abundant before the money comes, or loved before love enters your life, you are operating from the frequency of fulfillment rather than the frequency of lack, and that frequency becomes a magnetic force that reality cannot ignore. But here's what most people don't understand about certainty. It's not about convincing yourself that something is true when you don't really believe it. It's not about forcing positive thoughts or faking confidence. True certainty comes from recognizing your divine nature, from understanding that you are not separate from the creative force of the universe, but are that force expressing itself through you. When you truly understand that you are divine consciousness, temporarily focused in human form, when you recognize that the same intelligence that beats your heart and grows your hair is the same intelligence that can heal your body and transform your circumstances, when you know that you are not asking an external God for help, but aligning with the God that you are, everything changes. You stop begging and start commanding. You stop hoping and start knowing. You stop asking and start declaring. This shift from begging to declaring isn't about arrogance or ego. It's about remembering your true spiritual authority. You have been given dominion over your own consciousness, and through that consciousness, you hold the power to shape your experience. You are not a powerless being waiting for external rescue. You are a divine expression of creative intelligence, capable of commanding your reality through the clarity and alignment of your inner state. When your consciousness is in harmony with truth, your words carry the authority to move energy, open doors and transform circumstances. But this authority must be exercised at the right frequency. You cannot command from fear, doubt or desperation and expect divine results. You must command from love, faith and certainty. You must speak with the authority of one who knows their divine nature, who understands their creative power, and who recognizes their unity with infinite intelligence. This process is often described as getting beyond yourself, moving beyond the narrow identity of the ego mind and stepping into the limitless nature of your true self. When you operate from this expanded identity, when your thoughts, emotions and actions arise from the consciousness of your divine essence rather than your human limitations, you begin to speak and act with unshakable certainty. Not because you're trying to convince yourself, but because you remember who you are and what you're capable of. The practice begins with changing your relationship to prayer and intention setting. Instead of asking for what you want, declare what you know to be true. Instead of hoping for better circumstances, command divine order to manifest in your life. Instead of begging for help, align with the divine intelligence that is always available to express through you. For example, instead of saying, "Please God, help me find a job," you might declare, "I am now aligned with my perfect right work that allows me to express my gifts and receive abundant compensation." Instead of pleading, "Please heal my body," you might command, "Divine life and perfect health now expressed through every cell of my being." Instead of hoping, "I wish someone would love me," you might know, "I am love, and love recognizes itself in my experience." This is not about changing your words while keeping the same consciousness. This is about changing your consciousness and allowing that new consciousness to express itself through your words. When you truly know your divine nature, when you genuinely understand your creative power, when you authentically recognize your unity with infinite intelligence, commanding rather than begging becomes natural. But this certainty must be cultivated and practiced. You don't just decide to be certain and immediately embody that state. You develop certainty through consistent practice, through repeatedly choosing faith over fear, through regularly aligning with your divine nature rather than your human limitations. Every time you choose certainty over doubt, every time you declare rather than beg, every time you command rather than plead, you strengthen your spiritual authority and deepen your connection to divine power. When you consistently operate from a frequency of certainty, when you align regularly with divine intelligence, when you learn to command rather than plead, you begin to cultivate what can be called spiritual authority. This authority isn't something you have to earn or achieve. It's something you recognize and embody. It arises naturally the moment you remember who you truly are and begin to act from that deep inner knowing. It is not forceful. It is magnetic. It is not based on effort. It is based on alignment. When you embody spiritual authority, when you consistently operate from certainty rather than desperation, when you regularly command rather than beg, you discover that the universe responds to you differently. Doors that were previously closed, opportunities appear that you couldn't see before. Solutions emerge that you couldn't imagine. People respond to you with respect and cooperation. Circumstances align in your favor. This is not because you've become special or chosen. It's because you've aligned with the frequency that creates rather than the frequency that lacks, the frequency that commands rather than the frequency that begs, the frequency that knows rather than the frequency that hopes. You've tuned into the divine frequency, and from that frequency, miracles are not extraordinary events, but natural expressions of your aligned consciousness. God responds to certainty, not begging, because certainty is the frequency of the divine itself. When you operate from certainty, you're not asking an external God for help. You're expressing the God that you are, and that expression naturally creates the experiences that match your divine nature. Chapter 5. Your personal frequency is a prayer. Every moment of every day you are praying, not with words, not with formal rituals, not with religious ceremonies, but with the frequency you're broadcasting through your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and energy. Your personal frequency is a constant prayer, a continuous communication with the quantum field, an ongoing conversation with the divine intelligence that responds to every signal you send. Most people think of prayer as something they do occasionally, usually in moments of need, fear, or desperation. They bow their heads, fold their hands, and speak words to a God they imagine exists somewhere far away, listening from a distance. But the deeper truth is this: prayer is not something you do. Prayer is something you are. Your entire being is a living prayer, continuously broadcasting your consciousness into the field of infinite possibility. God is not confined to a building, a ritual, or a distant heaven. God is the frequency of your consciousness, the signal you send out with every thought, every word, every emotion, and every action. Every mental image is a prayer. Every feeling is a transmission. Every spoken word is a declaration to the divine. You are always in communication with the greater intelligence, always sending, always receiving, and the quality of your life is the direct result of the frequency you continuously radiate. This truth has been demonstrated through research on the electromagnetic fields of the heart and brain. Your thoughts and emotions generate measurable frequencies that extend beyond your physical body, radiating into the quantum field. These frequencies carry precise information, reflecting your internal state, your beliefs, your expectations, and your desires. The field receives this energetic broadcast and responds by organizing events, circumstances, and opportunities that align with the signal you're emitting. But here's what most people don't realize about their personal frequency. They think they're only broadcasting when they're consciously thinking or deliberately feeling. They don't understand that they're transmitting a signal every moment, even when they're not paying attention to their thoughts or emotions. Their unconscious beliefs, their habitual emotional patterns, their automatic reactions, and their default ways of being are all part of their frequency, all part of their constant prayer. If your default frequency is anxiety, worry, and fear, that's the prayer you're sending most of the time, regardless of your conscious desires or positive intentions. If your habitual emotional state is resentment, frustration, and anger, that's the signal the field is receiving from you continuously. If your unconscious beliefs are rooted in lack, limitation, and unworthiness, that's the frequency you're broadcasting, even when you're trying to think positively. This is why it's so important to watch your thoughts and emotions, not only during prayer or meditation, but throughout your entire day. Your casual thoughts, your automatic reactions, your habitual emotional patterns are just as powerful, and often more so, than your intentional affirmations. Why? Because they are more consistent, and they often carry a deeper emotional charge. These subtle, repeated signals shape your reality moment by moment, becoming the true architects of your experience. The practice of conscious frequency management begins with awareness. You must become conscious of what you're broadcasting most of the time. Notice your default thoughts when you're not deliberately directing your mind. Pay attention to your habitual emotions when you're not consciously choosing how to feel. Observe your automatic reactions when unexpected situations arise. These unconscious patterns are the foundation of your personal frequency, the background signal that's creating your reality. Once you become aware of your default frequency, You can begin to consciously choose what you want to broadcast. This is not about forcing positive thoughts or suppressing negative emotions. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in every moment about what frequency you tune into and transmit. You can choose thoughts that align with what you want to create. You can choose emotions that match your desired reality. You can choose beliefs that support your highest vision. When you consistently choose elevated thoughts and emotions, when you regularly broadcast the frequencies of love, gratitude, joy, and peace, you begin to rewire your brain and recondition your nervous system. New neural pathways are formed that support higher states of being. Your heart learns to generate coherent electromagnetic fields, and over time, you develop the inner stability to sustain elevated states, even in the midst of external challenges. This is how spiritual alignment becomes your new baseline, not just a momentary experience, but a lasting way of being. But this practice requires vigilance and dedication. Old patterns, familiar frequencies, and unconscious programs will inevitably try to resurface, especially when you're stressed, exhausted, or emotionally triggered. That's why spiritual growth is not a one-time event, but a daily practice, a moment-by-moment decision to align with divine frequency rather than fall back into the limits of the past. Every thought, every reaction, every emotional choice becomes an opportunity to either repeat your old story or embody your highest truth. Think of yourself as a radio station that's always broadcasting. The question is not whether you're transmitting a signal. The question is what kind of signal you're transmitting. Are you broadcasting the frequency of fear or faith? Are you transmitting the signal of lack or abundance? Are you sending out the vibration of separation or unity? Are you praying the prayer of limitation or possibility? Every time you choose a thought that aligns with your highest vision, you're praying for that vision to manifest. Every time you generate an emotion that matches your desired reality, you're praying for that reality to appear. Every time you speak words that affirm your divine nature, you're praying for that nature to express itself. Every time you act from love rather than fear, you're praying for more love to enter your experience. But the reverse is also true. Every time you choose thoughts of limitation, you're praying for limitation to continue. Every time you generate emotions of lack, you're praying for lack to persist. Every time you speak words of fear, you're praying for fearful experiences. Every time you act from separation, you're praying for more separation to manifest. This understanding transforms your entire approach to spiritual practice. You realize that you don't need to set aside special times for prayer because you're always praying. You don't need to find sacred spaces because wherever you are is sacred when you're consciously broadcasting divine frequency. You don't need formal rituals because your entire life becomes a ritual of conscious communication with infinite intelligence. The goal is to make your personal frequency a conscious prayer for the highest good, a deliberate broadcast of divine qualities, a consistent transmission of love, peace, joy, and abundance. When your frequency becomes a prayer for the manifestation of your highest potential, when your consciousness becomes a constant affirmation of divine order, when your entire being becomes a living prayer for the expression of God through you, you discover that you don't just receive answers to your prayers, you become the answer to prayer itself. This is the ultimate realization of spiritual maturity. You stop asking God to change your circumstances and start allowing God to express through your consciousness. You stop praying for miracles and start becoming a miracle. You stop broadcasting requests for divine intervention and start transmitting divine presence. Your personal frequency becomes so aligned with divine frequency that there's no separation between your prayer and God's response, between your desire and its fulfillment, between your consciousness and divine consciousness. When you reach this level of alignment, when your personal frequency becomes a pure prayer of divine expression, you discover that the universe doesn't just respond to your prayers. The universe recognizes you as a conscious expression of its own divine nature, and through you, it creates experiences that reflect the highest possibilities of love, wisdom, and creative power. Your personal frequency is always a prayer. The question is whether it's a conscious prayer that aligns with your highest good, or an unconscious prayer that perpetuates limitation. Choose your frequency wisely, broadcast it consistently, and watch as your life becomes the answer to your deepest prayers. Chapter 6. The field remembers what you forget. There's an intelligence in the quantum field that never forgets, never sleeps, never stops working on your behalf. This intelligence holds every possibility, every potential, every dream you've ever had in a state of perfect preservation, waiting for the right energetic conditions to bring them into manifestation. While you may forget your power, doubt your worth, or lose faith in your dreams, the field remembers everything and continues to orchestrate the perfect circumstances for your highest good. There is a profound truth known to those who understand the deeper laws of creation. A divine plan exists for every soul. Within the invisible realm of infinite potential lies a perfect pattern, a higher blueprint for your life. It includes radiant health, fulfilling relationships, meaningful work, abundant resources, and deep inner joy. This plan is not fabricated by effort. It already exists, held in trust by the field of divine intelligence, waiting for your alignment with the frequency that unlocks it. When you are in harmony with divine order, unexpected doors fly open, not by chance, but because the field has been preparing those pathways long before you were ready to walk them. The perfect opportunity, the right connection, the long-awaited healing or creative breakthrough, these are not coincidences, but responses to resonance. When your consciousness rises to meet the vibration of your highest potential, the blessings that have always been yours begin to flow into your life with a precision and timing that feel nothing short of miraculous. This ancient wisdom is now supported by a deeper understanding of the quantum field, not as empty space, but as an intelligent and responsive medium that stores information and reacts to consciousness. The field is a living intelligence, holding infinite possibilities in a state of pure potential. It continuously reads your vibration, your beliefs, and your expectations, responding not to what you say you want, but to the energetic signal you consistently emit. But here's what makes this intelligence so remarkable. The field doesn't just respond to your current state of consciousness. It also holds the memory of your highest moments, your peak experiences, your times of greatest alignment and clarity. When you've touched your divine nature, even briefly, when you've experienced unconditional love, perfect peace, or unlimited possibility, the field records these frequencies and continues to work toward manifesting more experiences that match these elevated states. Once you've had a genuine spiritual experience, once you've touched the truth of your divine nature, you can never fully return to unconsciousness. The field remembers. It holds the imprint of your awakened moments and continues to draw you back toward those higher frequencies. Even when you forget who you are, even when you slip into old patterns or doubt the reality of your own transformation, the field continues to hold the truth of your essence. It patiently creates the conditions for your return, guiding you toward stability in your higher self, always working toward the full expression of the divine within you. This is the holographic nature of the field, the truth that every part contains the whole, every moment holds all possibilities, and every experience carries the seed of infinite potential. When you align with any aspect of your divine nature, you give the field permission to begin activating all aspects of your highest expression. When you embody love in one area of your life, the field begins to organize loving experiences in all areas. When you express abundance in one form, the field begins generating abundance in every form, because the vibration you hold in one place echoes through the entire fabric of your reality. But the field's memory is not just about your positive experiences. It also holds the patterns of limitation, fear, and separation that you've created through unconscious thinking and feeling. If you've consistently broadcast frequencies of lack, unworthiness, or fear, the field has organized reality to match these patterns. The field is neutral and intelligent, but it doesn't judge your frequencies as good or bad. It simply responds to whatever you consistently broadcast. This is why healing and transformation are possible at any moment. The field doesn't hold grudges or maintain permanent records of your mistakes. It's constantly updating its response based on your current frequency. When you shift your consciousness, when you choose new thoughts and emotions, when you align with higher frequencies, the field immediately begins reorganizing reality to match your new broadcast. The past doesn't determine your future unless you keep recreating the past through your present consciousness. The practice of working with the field's intelligence begins with trust and surrender. You must learn to trust that there's a divine intelligence working on your behalf, even when you can't see evidence of it in your current circumstances. You must surrender your need to control how and when your good will manifest and allow the field's perfect timing and methods to unfold. You must have faith that the field remembers your highest potential even when you've forgotten it yourself. There is a powerful spiritual practice known as casting the burden, the act of releasing your concerns and desires to divine intelligence, trusting that the perfect solution already exists within the field of infinite possibility. When you cast the burden, you're not giving up or becoming passive. You're consciously recognizing that a higher intelligence far greater than the human mind can perceive pathways and outcomes beyond your current awareness. This technique is letting go of attachment to particular outcomes and having faith that the field will frequently produce something much bigger than you could have ever dreamed. It entails giving up control over timing and submitting to divine orchestration. It entails putting aside your predetermined procedures and letting the universe's boundless imagination provide possibilities and solutions in ways that frequently defy reason, yet feel entirely appropriate. As you develop trust in this higher intelligence, as you surrender limitations and align with boundless possibility, you begin to witness the unfolding of divine order in your life. Synchronicities increase, perfect timing becomes natural, the right people appear, the right solutions arise effortlessly. What once seemed impossible begins to unfold with grace, not through struggle, but through alignment. This is not magic or wishful thinking. This is the natural result of aligning your consciousness with the intelligence of the field and allowing that intelligence to work through you and for you. When you remember that the field remembers everything, when you trust in its perfect intelligence, when you surrender to its divine timing, you discover that you're not alone in creating your reality. You're partnered with an infinite intelligence that knows exactly how to manifest your highest good in the most perfect way. The field remembers what you forget, holds what you release, and manifests what you allow. Your job is not to figure out how everything will work out. Your job is to align with the frequency of your highest potential and trust the field to handle the details. When you do this consistently, when you live in partnership with this divine intelligence, you discover that your life becomes a continuous demonstration of the field's perfect memory and infinite creativity. Chapter 7. Surrender is the final frequency shift. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when you must make the ultimate choice. Will you continue trying to control your life through the limited power of your ego mind, or will you surrender to the infinite intelligence that knows exactly how to create your highest good? This moment of surrender is not a defeat or a giving up. It's the final frequency shift that opens the door to miracles, the ultimate alignment that allows divine power to flow through you without obstruction. Surrender is the hidden key that unlocks all spiritual power. When you cast the burden and go free, when you release the need to control every outcome or mentally solve every problem, you create the space for divine intelligence to move in ways far beyond your imagination. True surrender is not passive or weak. It is not resignation. It is a radical act of trust, a bold alignment with infinite possibility. It is the moment you stop forcing and start flowing, and that's when miracles begin. But most people misunderstand what surrender means. They think it means giving up their dreams, accepting limitations, or becoming passive victims of circumstance. They fear that surrender means losing control, and since control feels like the only power they have, they resist surrendering even when their attempts to control are creating more problems than solutions. True surrender is not about giving up your power. It's about recognizing where your real power lies. Your ego mind, with all its planning and worrying and trying to force outcomes, has very limited power. It can only see a tiny fraction of the possibilities available to you. It can only work with the information it already knows. It can only create solutions based on past experience and current understanding. But the divine intelligence that you can surrender to has unlimited power. It can see all possibilities simultaneously. It has access to infinite information and resources. It can create solutions that have never existed before. It can orchestrate synchronicities and coincidences that bring about perfect outcomes in ways your mind could never plan or predict. This is the art of getting comfortable with the unknown, learning to trust the field of infinite possibility rather than trying to control life through old familiar patterns of thought and behavior. When you surrender the need to know how things will unfold, when you release attachment to specific methods and rigid timelines, you open yourself to quantum outcomes that exist far beyond the boundaries of logic and predictability. The most profound transformations occur when individuals are willing to let go of their former identity, release outdated ways of thinking and feeling, and allow themselves to be reorganized by a higher intelligence. This surrender requires more than giving up problems. It asks you to release even your ideas of the solution. It's not just letting go of fear, but also letting go of your expectations, not just your limitations, but even your concepts of how and when your good should arrive. In that sacred space of surrender, the miraculous becomes possible. The ego mind resists this surrender because it equates control with safety. It believes that if you're not constantly vigilating, planning, and managing every detail, something terrible will happen. It thinks that your survival depends on your ability to anticipate problems and find solutions. But this constant effort to control actually creates more stress, anxiety, and limitation than it prevents. When you surrender, when you let go of the exhausting effort to control outcomes through mental force, you discover that there's an intelligence operating in your life that's far more capable than your ego mind. This intelligence has been orchestrating your heartbeat, your breathing, your cellular regeneration, and countless other complex processes without any conscious effort from you. It knows how to heal your body, attract your good, and create your perfect life if you'll stop interfering with its natural flow. Surrender begins with the realization that you are not separate from divine intelligence. You are an expression of it. When you surrender, you are not giving your power away to something outside of yourself. Instead, you are aligning with the divine power within you, allowing it to flow through you without resistance, free from the interference of fear, doubt, or ego-driven control. This kind of surrender requires faith in the invisible, a willingness to trust in a higher order even when your current circumstances offer no visible proof. It means believing that a perfect plan is unfolding for your life, even when things appear chaotic or uncertain. It means knowing deep in your being that divine intelligence is actively working on your behalf, even if you cannot yet see how or when your good will arrive. The practice of surrender is both simple and challenging. It's simple because it only requires letting go. It's challenging because letting go goes against every instinct of the ego mind that wants to maintain control. The practice begins with small surrenders, releasing your need to control minor outcomes and trusting that divine intelligence will handle the details. You might surrender your need to know exactly how you'll meet your financial obligations and trust that divine supply will provide. You might release your attachment to a specific relationship outcome and trust that divine love will bring you the perfect partnership. You might let go of your timeline for healing and trust that divine life will restore your body in perfect timing. As you practice these small surrenders and witness how divine intelligence responds with solutions you couldn't have planned, you develop the faith to surrender bigger concerns. You learn that surrender doesn't lead to chaos but to order, not to loss but to gain, not to limitation but to expansion. The ultimate surrender is the surrender of your separate identity, the recognition that you are not an isolated individual trying to survive in a hostile universe, but a unique expression of divine consciousness experiencing itself through your perspective. When you surrender the illusion of separation, when you let go of the belief that you're alone and unsupported, you discover that you're held by infinite love, guided by infinite wisdom, and empowered by infinite possibility. This is the state of becoming no one, no body, no thing, nowhere in no time. The complete dissolution of ego identity that allows your true nature to emerge. In this profound surrender, You're not striving to achieve, prove, or become anything. You are simply resting in the stillness of pure awareness, allowing divine consciousness to flow through you without resistance, without agenda. In this space, the personal dissolves, and the eternal begins to move. When you reach this level of surrender, when you've released all need to control and all attachment to outcomes, you discover that you haven't lost anything. You've gained everything. You've gained access to infinite intelligence, unlimited creativity, and divine power. You've become a clear channel for miracles, a pure expression of divine love, a conscious participant in the ongoing creation of reality. Surrender is the final frequency shift because it's the frequency of the divine itself. When you surrender completely, when you align totally with divine will, when you trust absolutely in divine intelligence, you're no longer broadcasting from the limited frequency of human ego. You're transmitting from the unlimited frequency of divine consciousness, and from that frequency, all things are possible. Chapter 8. Living as the Frequency of God. The ultimate goal of spiritual development is not just to have occasional mystical experiences or temporary manifestations. It's to undergo a complete identity shift, to transform from someone who occasionally connects with divine frequency to someone who consistently embodies it. This is what it means to live as the frequency of God, to become a walking, breathing, living expression of divine love, power, and peace in every moment of your existence. True spiritual mastery is not measured by what you can do, but by who you become. When you consistently align with divine frequency, when your thoughts, words, and actions flow from your higher nature, you don't just create improved circumstances. You experience a profound inner shift. You no longer live as a human being searching for the divine. You become a divine being expressing through a human form. This transformation requires deep awareness of your speech, because your words are the most direct expression of your consciousness. You must speak only what you are willing to live. Every word should echo the reality you desire to embody. When your language consistently affirms love, abundance, health, and harmony, you begin to program your inner world, and by extension, your outer world, to reflect those same divine qualities. In this way, your voice becomes a tool of creation, and your life becomes the evidence of your alignment. This ancient wisdom is now being confirmed through research in neuroplasticity and heart-brain coherence. When you consistently think, feel, and act from an elevated state, you begin to rewire your brain and recondition your nervous system. New neural pathways are formed that support expanded awareness and divine consciousness. Your heart develops patterns of rhythm that generate coherent electromagnetic fields, aligning your entire being with a higher frequency. At the biological level, you begin to become someone new, not by effort alone, but by energetic alignment. However, this kind of transformation requires more than positive thinking or occasional moments of clarity. It calls for a deep and sustained coherence between the heart, brain, and body, a unified state where all aspects of your being are working together to express the same elevated frequency. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are synchronized, all broadcasting a single, clear, divine signal, you create a coherent field around you that naturally draws in experiences that match your new, higher state of being. Living as the frequency of God means that your default state becomes divine consciousness rather than human limitation. Instead of occasionally rising to higher frequencies during meditation or prayer, you learn to maintain those frequencies throughout your daily life. Instead of temporarily accessing divine qualities during peak experiences, you embody those qualities as your natural way of being. To do this, you must fundamentally change the way you live your life. Your job becomes a way to serve God, a chance to share your talents, and a way to make a difference. Your connections turn into conduits for divine love and chances to see and respect the divine essence in other people. Your difficulties turn into opportunities to show off divine might and to demonstrate that divine intellect is capable of resolving any issue and restoring any circumstance. But this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistent practice, daily choices to align with divine frequency rather than human limitation. Every moment becomes an opportunity to choose love over fear, faith over doubt, abundance over lack, peace over conflict. Every interaction becomes a chance to express divine qualities rather than ego-based reactions. The practice begins with watching your words. Throughout your day, pay attention to what you're saying about yourself, your life, your circumstances, and other people. Notice when your words align with divine truth and when they reinforce human limitation. Gradually train yourself to speak only words that affirm the divine reality you want to embody. Instead of saying, "I'm so tired," you might say, "Divine energy flows through me." Instead of complaining, "I can't afford that," you might declare, "I am abundantly provided for." Instead of worrying, "What if something goes wrong?" you might affirm, "Divine order governs my life." This is not about denying your current experience, but about speaking from the frequency you want to embody, rather than the frequency you want to transcend. Verbal alignment must be supported by emotional coherence. You cannot speak divine truths while feeling fear, doubt, or lack and expect to embody a divine frequency. Your emotions must match your declarations. When you say, "I am love," you must feel love in your heart. When you affirm, "I am abundant," you must embody the feeling of abundance. When you declare, "I am at peace," that peace must be reflected in the stillness of your nervous system. This level of emotional coherence arises when the heart and brain operate in harmony, generating a unified state of being. When the heart beats with coherent rhythms, inspired by emotions like gratitude, joy, and compassion, it sends harmonious signals to the brain. This synchronization enhances mental clarity, sharpens intuition, strengthens decision-making, and allows you to sustain elevated emotional states even in the face of adversity. It is in this union of word, feeling, and physiology that true transformation begins. The practice of living as a divine frequency also requires physical alignment. Your body must become a temple for divine consciousness, a vehicle that supports and expresses elevated states rather than one that drags you down into lower frequencies. This means caring for your body with the reverence you would show to a sacred space, nourishing it with foods that support high vibration, moving it in ways that generate energy and vitality, and resting it sufficiently to maintain optimal function. But perhaps most importantly, living as a divine frequency requires a complete shift in identity. You must stop seeing yourself as a human being who occasionally has spiritual experiences and start recognizing yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience. You must release the identity of someone who seeks God and embrace the identity of someone who expresses God. You must let go of the belief that you're separate from divine intelligence and embody the truth that you are divine intelligence in action. This identity shift is not about ego inflation or spiritual pride. It's about recognizing the truth of what you are beneath all the conditioning and programming that has convinced you that you're limited, separate, and powerless. When you truly understand that you are divine consciousness, temporarily focused in human form, when you genuinely recognize that the same intelligence that creates galaxies is the intelligence that beats your heart, when you authentically know that you are not separate from God, but are God expressing as you, everything changes. From this identity, love becomes your natural expression because you recognize that love is what you are. Abundance becomes your natural experience because you understand that abundance is your divine nature. Peace becomes your natural state because you know that peace is the essence of divine consciousness. Joy becomes your natural emotion because you realize that joy is the frequency of creation itself. Living as a divine frequency means that miracles become normal in your experience, not because you're special or chosen, but because you're aligned with the frequency where miracles are the natural order. Synchronicities multiply because you're operating from the level of consciousness where all things are connected. Healing happens easily because you're embodying the frequency of wholeness. Abundance flows naturally because you're expressing the consciousness of infinite supply. But this way of living also carries great responsibility. When you embody divine frequency, you become a beacon of possibility for others. Your presence alone uplifts and inspires. Your words carry the power to heal. Your actions reveal what becomes possible when someone chooses to live from their higher nature. You become a clear channel for divine intelligence, and through your example, others begin to remember their own divinity, not because you teach them, but because you live it. The goal is not to achieve this state once and maintain it forever. The goal is to make this your practice, your daily choice, your moment-by-moment commitment. Every day you wake up with the opportunity to choose whether you'll live from human limitation or divine possibility. Every interaction gives you the chance to express ego-based reactions or divine qualities. Every challenge offers you the option to respond from fear or from faith. As you consistently choose to live as a divine frequency, as you regularly embody divine consciousness, as you habitually express divine qualities, you discover that you're not just creating a better life for yourself. You're contributing to the elevation of human consciousness itself. You're helping to anchor divine frequency on Earth. You're participating in the transformation of the world through the transformation of your own being. Living as the frequency of God is not a destination, but a journey. Not an achievement, but a practice. Not a state you reach, but a choice you make in every moment. When you commit to this practice, when you dedicate your life to embodying divine frequency, you discover that you don't just experience God occasionally. You become a living expression of God's love, wisdom, and power in the world. Chapter 9. Miracles are natural in this frequency. When you consistently live from divine frequency, when you habitually embody the consciousness of infinite possibility, when you regularly align with the creative power of the universe itself, something extraordinary becomes ordinary. What others call miracles becomes your natural way of life. Synchronicities multiply. Perfect timing becomes normal. Impossible solutions appear effortlessly. Healing happens spontaneously. Abundance flows naturally. Love expands infinitely. Miracles are not supernatural events that defy natural law. They are the natural result of spiritual law functioning at its highest level. When you align with divine order, when you embody higher consciousness, when you operate from a frequency of divine intelligence, you unlock a level of creative power where the impossible becomes inevitable, where limitations dissolve, and where new realities manifest with grace and precision. The truth is this: anything not aligned with your highest good cannot sustain itself in the presence of divine frequency. When you consistently live from this elevated state, obstacles that once felt immovable simply dissolve. Problems that seemed unsolvable begin to resolve themselves. Circumstances that once felt hopeless transform into opportunities. This is not magic. This is the natural outcome of spiritual alignment, the frequency where all answers, all healing, and all possibilities already exist. Thousands of documented cases now reveal that when people operate from elevated states of consciousness, they experience what can only be described as miraculous healings, transformations, and manifestations. When someone consistently embodies the frequency of their desired future, when they regularly generate elevated emotions and maintain coherence between their thoughts, feelings, and actions, they create the energetic conditions where quantum shifts are not only possible, but natural. These miracles occur when consciousness transcends the limits of linear time and physical space. In elevated states of awareness, in the frequency of divine alignment, you gain access to a field of infinite potential, where healing doesn't require time, manifestation doesn't rely on logic, and transformation doesn't have to be slow. Change can happen instantaneously because you are no longer bound by cause and effect. You're operating from the level of consciousness where all outcomes already exist. But these miraculous experiences are not random gifts bestowed upon a chosen few. They are natural expressions of consciousness operating at its full potential. When you consistently live from divine frequency, when you regularly embody elevated states, when you habitually align with infinite possibility, you create the internal conditions that make external miracles inevitable. The key is understanding that miracles are not violations of natural law, but expressions of higher natural law. The laws that govern three-dimensional reality, the laws of cause and effect that operate in linear time, are real but limited. They govern the realm of matter and form, but they don't govern the realm of consciousness and possibility. When you operate from divine frequency, you access laws that transcend physical limitations, laws that can reorganize matter, accelerate time, and create new realities. This is why faith can move mountains. Not because faith is a magical force that overrides natural law, but because faith aligns you with the frequency where the laws that govern mountains, the laws that govern matter itself, can be transcended by the laws that govern consciousness. When your consciousness is aligned with divine frequency, when your faith is absolute and unwavering, you access creative power that can literally reorganize physical reality. But living in a frequency where miracles are natural requires more than occasional peak experiences or temporary alignments. It requires what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls becoming supernatural, developing the ability to consistently operate from elevated states regardless of external circumstances. It means training your nervous system to maintain divine frequency even when faced with challenges, setbacks, or apparent impossibilities. This training involves daily practice of elevated emotions, regular meditation to access transcendent states, consistent alignment of thoughts and feelings, and unwavering commitment to embodying divine consciousness. It requires developing spiritual authority, the unshakable knowing that you are not subject to limitations, but are a creative force capable of transcending any obstacle. When you develop this level of spiritual authority, when you consistently operate from divine frequency, when you regularly embody the consciousness of infinite possibility, you begin to notice that your life operates according to different rules than most people's lives. Doors open that are closed to others. Opportunities appear that seem to come from nowhere. Solutions emerge that no one else can see. Resources materialize that weren't there before. This is not because you're special or chosen, but because you're operating from a frequency that has access to possibilities that are invisible from lower frequencies. You're aligned with the creative intelligence that knows how to solve any problem, heal any condition, and manifest any desire. You're embodying the consciousness that can command reality to reorganize itself according to divine order. But perhaps the most profound miracle that occurs when you live from divine frequency is the transformation of your own being. You discover that you are not the limited, separate, powerless person you once believed yourself to be. You recognize that you are an infinite consciousness temporarily focused in human form. You realize that you are not seeking God, but expressing God. You understand that you are not hoping for miracles, but embodying the miraculous. This recognition transforms not just your external circumstances, but your entire experience of being alive. Fear dissolves because you know you are held by infinite love. Anxiety disappears because you trust in divine intelligence. Lack becomes impossible because you embody infinite abundance. Separation ends because you recognize your unity with all life. From this frequency, every day becomes a miracle because you're living from the consciousness that creates miracles. Every interaction becomes sacred because you're expressing divine love. Every challenge becomes an opportunity because you know that divine intelligence can transform any situation. Every moment becomes precious because you're experiencing life from the frequency of the divine itself. Miracles are natural in this frequency because this frequency is the source of all miracles. When you align with it, embody it, and express it consistently, you don't just witness miracles, you become a miracle. You become a living demonstration of what's possible when human consciousness aligns with divine consciousness. You become proof that the impossible is possible, that limitations are illusions, and that divine frequency is available to anyone willing to embody it. There is always an invitation. The frequency is always accessible, it's always your decision. Will you go into the frequency where miracles are normal, or will you keep living from the frequency of limitation? Will you embody the consciousness of unity, or will you continue to exist in the consciousness of separation? Will you align with the energy of love or remain in the vibration of fear? Miracles are not exceptional occurrences when you select divine frequency, live as the remarkable being you truly are, and embody unlimited possibilities. They represent the optimum manifestation of awareness in its natural state. They are your innate condition, your birthright, and your heavenly inheritance that is only waiting to be utilized. Conclusion. Stay in the frequency no matter what. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to understand the most important truth of all. External conditions are just reflections, temporary shadows cast by consciousness, passing clouds that cannot dim the eternal sun of your divine nature. No matter what appears to be happening in your life, no matter how challenging your circumstances may seem, no matter how far you may feel from your dreams, never let external conditions dictate your internal frequency. This is the ultimate test of spiritual mastery, the final examination of your understanding, the moment when you prove to yourself and the universe that you truly know who you are. When everything in your external world seems to contradict the truth you've learned, when appearances suggest that divine frequency doesn't work, when others question your faith and doubt your path, this is precisely when you must hold most firmly to the frequency of the divine. This test is one that appears in every sincere spiritual journey. The moment you begin to align with divine frequency, the moment you start embodying your true nature and living as the divine being you are, everything within you that is not aligned with that truth will begin to rise to the surface, not to punish you, but to be seen, healed, and released. This is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It is the natural process of purification that unfolds when divine light begins to move through human consciousness. The old must come up to be transformed so that the new can take root in clarity and power. This same phenomenon has been observed in countless individuals who have committed to living from elevated states of consciousness. The journey from human limitation to divine expression often includes what many mystics have called the dark night of the soul. Those intense periods where old patterns surface before they dissolve, where challenges seem to multiply before they vanish, and where everything appears to fall apart just before something greater breaks through. Yet those who hold their elevated frequency through these storms, who refuse to let external conditions drag them back into fear, doubt, or limitation, are the ones who experience the most profound breakthroughs. They are the ones who transcend previous limits and step into higher realms of health, abundance, love, and creative power. Their persistence in divine alignment, regardless of appearances, becomes the very force that reshapes their reality. This is why you must understand that staying in divine frequency is not a fair-weather practice. It's not something you do only when life is easy, when circumstances are favorable, when everything is going according to plan. Divine frequency is your anchor in the storm, your light in the darkness, your strength in weakness, your peace in chaos. It's precisely when external conditions are most challenging that maintaining divine frequency becomes most important and most powerful. Remember that you are not visiting this frequency. You are not a tourist in the realm of divine consciousness. You are not temporarily accessing a state that belongs to someone else. You are this frequency. Divine consciousness is your true nature. Infinite possibility is your birthright. Creative power is your essence. You are not trying to become something you're not. You are remembering and embodying what you've always been. When you truly understand this, when you genuinely recognize that divine frequency is not something you achieve but something you are, staying in this frequency becomes natural rather than effortful. You don't have to work to maintain your divine nature any more than the sun has to work to shine, or the ocean has to work to be wet. You simply have to stop believing in and acting from the illusions that have convinced you that you're something other than divine consciousness in expression. The practice is simple but requires unwavering commitment. Every morning, before you engage with the external world, reconnect with your divine frequency. Remember who you are. Align your thoughts, emotions, and intentions with your highest nature. Set the tone for your day from divine consciousness rather than human limitation. Throughout your day, regularly check in with your frequency. Notice when external conditions are pulling you into lower vibrations and consciously choose to return to divine alignment. Use every challenge as an opportunity to demonstrate your spiritual authority. Use every interaction as a chance to express divine love. Use every moment as an invitation to embody infinite possibility. Every evening before you sleep, Review your day from the perspective of divine consciousness. Celebrate the moments when you successfully maintained your frequency. Learn from the times when you allowed external conditions to disturb your peace. Forgive yourself for any lapses and recommit to embodying divine frequency more consistently. As you make this practice your way of life, as you consistently choose divine frequency over human limitation, as you regularly embody infinite possibility, regardless of external conditions, you will discover something magnificent. You will realize that when you match the frequency of God, you don't chase life. Life recognizes you. Opportunities seek you out. Abundance flows to you. Love surrounds you. Miracles become your normal experience. But more importantly, you will discover that you are not just creating a better life for yourself. You are contributing to the transformation of human consciousness itself. Every moment you maintain divine frequency, you are anchoring that frequency on earth. Every time you choose love over fear, you are adding love to the collective field. Every time you embody possibility instead of limitation, you are making it easier for others to access their own divine nature. This is your mission, your purpose, your sacred calling. You are here not just to remember your own divine nature, but to help others remember theirs. You are here not just to embody divine frequency, but to demonstrate what becomes possible when someone lives from that frequency consistently. You are here not just to experience miracles, but to become a miracle in the lives of others. Stay in the frequency no matter what. Trust your divine nature no matter what. Embody infinite possibility no matter what. Remember that you are not a human being seeking God. You are God expressing as a human being. You are not separate from divine intelligence. You are divine intelligence in action. You are not hoping for miracles. You are the miracle that the world has been waiting for. When you match the frequency of God, you don't chase life. Life recognizes you, and through you, the divine frequency spreads, touching every life you encounter, transforming every situation you enter, healing every heart you meet with love. This is who you are. This is what you came here to do. This is the frequency that changes everything. Stay in it, no matter what.